Mr. Derek Omar, Chief Executive Officer, CARICOM, Ms. Helen Royer, Director, Human Development, CARICOM Secretariat, Mr. Ian Huyashu, Senior Health Specialist, Inter-American Development Bank, Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Joy St. John, Executive Director, Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, Dr. Lisa Inda, Director, Surveillance, CARPHA, Technical Officer, Accreditation and Conformity Assessment, Mr. Stephen Farquharson, Mr. Hayden Ryan, Executive Director, Acting, Barbados National Standards Institute, Mr. Mohan Nanwandi, Manager, Finance and Administration, Representative of the CARICOM Secretariat, Representative of the OECS Commission, Representative of the Caribbean Hotels and Tourism Association, representative of other international and Regency agencies joining us, Director of the Grenada Bureau of Standards, Director of the Haiti Bureau of Standards, Director of the Bahamas Bureau of Standards and Quality, staff of CARPHA, CROSQ staff joining us, members of the media, regional, local, regional, and international, other invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my duty to welcome you all to this activity, which is the signing of the letter of agreement between CROSQ and CARPHA. This letter of agreement sets out the parameters, the framework by which the two organizations have agreed to work and function under the Tourism and Health Project Phase 2, which is an IADB funded project. It sets out the responsibilities of the various organizations individually, as well as joint responsibilities for the two organizations. I will not continue giving details of the LOA because I know we have persons here who would go further into the details of the LOA. And as such, I would like to call on Dr. Lisa Inda to give brief remarks. But let me just give some background on Dr. Inda's involvement. And I could tell you it's pretty long. So I had to cut it down. Yeah, because then by the time I'm finished, she'll have no room to give her address. Dr. Inda is an innovative public health scientist specializing in infectious disease, travelers' health, and food safety. She has 18 years of regional and international experience in managing and executing regional public health, surveillance, and response programs with robust leadership, multidisciplinary technical expertise. And when I speak of technical expertise, I speak of epidemiology, microbiology, food safety, and environmental health. She also exercised health diplomacy, communications, implementation modalities: capacity building, resource mobilization. She has a PhD with high commendation, an MSc with distinction, and a BSc honors. Dr. Inda, as I would have previously said, is the Director of Surveillance, Disease Prevention and Control Division at CARPHA. She is responsible for directing, coordinating, and managing public health surveillance and response activities related to conditions of regional and international importance. She's currently the technical lead for CARPHA's comprehensive, multifaceted regional health response to COVID-19 pandemic, working with CARICOM heads of government, agencies, international, regional, and national. Dr. Inda also leads the Regional Tourism and Health Initiative, which is an innovative program that is addressing the health, safety, and environmental sanitation threats to tourism with the aim of strengthening regional and national health systems to enhancing the health of visitors and locals and thereby promote sustainable tourism and economic resilience. Recently, under Dr. Inda's guidance, regional guidelines for resuming travel to the Caribbean and a comprehensive package of proactive COVID-19 tourism measures to build assurance among the travelers that the Caribbean is healthier, safer, a healthier, safer choice as travel resumes, were developed. Dr. Inda, and of course I must add, she has been working with me for the past 3 years. That's important. And so I invite you, Dr. Inda, to give us some brief remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fulgence. A very pleasant, warm welcome and good morning to all. All protocols observed. Today, I'm really especially thrilled to be part of this milestone event as this exciting journey of the development of these 7 regional hospitality, health, safety, and environmental standards started, as Mr. Fulgence said, the last 3 years. Permit me to provide some background. The Regional Hospitality, Health, Safety, and Environmental Sanitation Standards, which I would refer to as HSC after this, is one of the 9 components of CARPHA's holistic regional tourism and health program. So recognizing that the health of the Caribbean economies are closely related to the health of travel and tourism industry, and given that we are the most tourism dependent region in the world, and that our tourism is vulnerable to health, food, safety, and environmental sanitation threats, CARPHA established this regional tourism and health program in 2014. The THP is unique. We are dealing with the tourism sector, but developing a health program to address health, safety, and environmental threats. To effectively address these threats to tourism, it requires a holistic, multi-pronged approach. The THP thus devised a multifaceted, multi-sectoral program that included the following regional public health goods that allows countries to prepare for and respond to public health threats. The Tourism and Health Information Surveillance System for land-based tourism, the Caribbean Vessel Surveillance System for sea-based tourism, regional guidelines for managing illness in accommodations and ship settings, a range of capacity building, the Caribbean Travelers Health Assurance Stamp, the Caribbean Travelers Health Mobile App, and of course, what we are speaking about today, the Hospitality, Health, Safety, and Environmental Standards. And lastly, partnerships, mandates, and policy. This Hospitality, Health, Safety, and Environmental Standards was really born out of a need that there was no regional, cumulative HSC operational standards that promoted science-based, harmonized, standardized HSE practices that was meeting national, regional, as well as international standards. And of course, the only logical partner to develop this with was CROSQ, the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, who has that mandate for development of regional standards. I recall, Mr. Omar, one of our first meetings in 2018, where I said we really wanted to develop 7 regional standards. He laughed at me and told me I was crazy because it took years to develop one regional standard. But that did not stop us. Like minds, I want to say CARPHA and CROSQ. CARPHA and CROSQ embarked on this impossible task that was filled with lots of work, but at the same time, lots of pride and excitement as we were creating something new and relevant to the region. It will be remiss of me if I do not recognize the stellar contribution and coordination from Mr. Fulgent from CROSQ. It has been a pleasure, and it will be a continued pleasure to work with you. These 7 regional clean and green standards, namely food safety and sanitation for the tourism industry, energy management and efficiency for the tourism industry, water treatment, management and efficiency, sewage treatment and management, solid waste management, integrated pest management, and environmental management system, is a key component to addressing health, safety, and environmental threats in the Caribbean. Through a vigorous process, these standards began development in 2019. The first face-to-face meeting was held in January 2022, where there was a review on the first draft submitted. Then the Technical Management Committee would meet once a week during COVID since July 2020 to work on the standards, while the Regional Technical Committee reviewed. So it was a massive ongoing effort. A meeting of the CROSQ Editorial Committee was held in October 2020. And at the 3rd special extraordinary meeting of the Technical Management Committee held in March, it was agreed that the timeline of the standards be extended to May 2021. Finally, after validation from the Regional Technical Committee, the standards were submitted to the COTED for approval. So after years of hard work, the standards were approved in November 2021. These standards, the implementation of these standards would significantly reduce the adverse effect of HSE issues in the region, which really in turn would contribute to the sector being better and to the well-being of the region. As we sign this LOA today, I want to say to all of us, the journey not end. In fact, it now starts. We have much work to do because we are now, as part of this LOA includes the distribution, the assessment, the implementation of these standards, and the assessment to give an HST or Health and Safety Tourism Award. And then there is the whole component of accreditation. So I really look forward to working with CROSQ on all of these other activities that are going to come up the next few years. Finally, funding is key to achieving these outputs. The Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, has been funding the THP initiatives since its inception. Our focal point, Mr. Ian Horseshoe, Senior Health Specialist of Trinidad and Tobago, is now an honorary team member because he has believed in this big holistic vision from inception and worked with us every step of the way. Thank you to IDB. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Inda. Thank you for the kind words that you have said about CROSQ, but CROSQ is all about the development of RQI, of which standards development is a key pillar of the regional quality infrastructure. As you would have said, when we met in 2018 in your offices in Trinidad to get along with Mr. Omar, I said, when I went back, I told Mr. Omar, this woman must be mad. 7 standards in a 2-year time frame, when one standard takes 24 and a half months, but on a best effort basis, we can do it within a 12-month period. So we're talking about 7, 12, 84 months, you know? But I told him, no problem. I have a good team, regional technical committee, 6, tourism and related services, right? That I know would be able to achieve that feat. And I told, and as Dr. Inda would have itemized the steps, you know, that it took, I could tell you that team worked hard, right? They work hard, you know. We're talking about after the standards, we did get a consultant who assisted, and she would have basically worked on the first draft, but then the committee had to approve of that draft. And then we had working groups. We formed 4 working groups. Then the standard had to go back to the committee and whatnot. We actually took 7 days to edit those 7 standards. It was not any easy feat. And so I'd like to thank them. But I would get an opportunity to talk about that a little further, because I understand there would be a major launching of those standards once they are printed. So I thank you, Dr. Inda. I call my next speaker, who is to my right, Dr. St. John. Dr. St. John rose in the ranks of public health in Barbados from 1994 to become the first Barbadian Chief Medical Officer in 2005. Dr. St. John also represented Barbados on the executive board of WHO, the World Health Organization, and then became the first Caribbean person to chair the executive board from 2012 to 2013. Dr. St. John finally left the post of Chief Medical Officer in 2017 when she became the Assistant Director General at the WHO in Switzerland, right? There she held the portfolio of climate and other determinants of health and successfully completed the first phase of the Climate Change and Health Seeds Initiative. In July of 2019, Dr. St. John became the Executive Director of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, and she has led the public health response to the COVID-19 pandemic. She, Dr. St. John leadership, has seen her have over 300 leadership speaking engagements since COVID. So in other words, like every day, Dr. St. John speaks about COVID, whether she speaks to the heads of government, whether she speaks to the ministers of health at COSHOD, or whether she speaks to the ministers of trade at COTED, she have some engagement, 300 of them, right? Like with multiple sectors and the health leaders and the heads of government of CARICOM. Dr. St. John, I now invite you to make your speech on behalf of CARPHA. Let me just see, I consider Dr. St. John as being the free seas, calm, cool, and collected.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sipri. So, Ms. Helen Royer, Director, Human Development, Caribbean Community Secretariat, Mr. Derek Omar, Chief Executive Officer of CROSQ, and his very capable staff. Mr. Ian Horseshoe, Senior Health Specialist with the IDB. Dr. Sami, Director of Corporate Services at CARPHA. Dr. Indar, Director of Surveillance, Disease Prevention and Control, and the Tourism and Health Program at CARPHA. Ms. Maria Fowle, Senior Technical Specialist, Tourism of the OECS Commission. Mr. Stephen Facrison, Technical Officer, Accreditation and Conformity Assessment, CROSQ. Mr. Mohan Nanwani, Finance and Operations Manager at CROSQ. Representative of CHTA, the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am excited that this standard setting process between CARPHA and CROSQ has progressed so successfully that we are at the stage of this signing ceremony. This is a major milestone in the establishment of a regional framework recognizing the quality of the tourism product in the Caribbean. Since CARPHA began operation in 2013, it is fitting that our 26 member states can be assured that CARPHA is striving to ensure that it does its part so that the tourism product is viewed as a world-class product in every way. This is also a celebration of the ongoing collaboration with our key partner and fellow CARICOM institution, CROSQ. We are especially delighted to be signing this letter of agreement. This formal partnership with CROSQ directly meets CARPHA's mission as a professional organization to build member states' capacity to prevent disease and promote health and wellness through leadership, partnership, and innovation in public health. As Dr. Indar mentioned, CARPHA and CROSQ began development of the 7 regional standards in 2018 BC, before COVID. CARPHA used these 2 pandemic years to fast track the technical execution of the capacity building towards a safe tourism product, even in the midst of the greatest health and economic threat in modern history. These standards can provide the tourism sector with a benchmark which tells users of the Caribbean tourism product that there is knowledge and capacity to operate safely even during this new normal. It is also important to note that post-COVID, these standards will remain relevant in addressing non-COVID health, safety, and environmental issues that undermined the Caribbean reputation of a safe tourism destination before COVID. In closing, CARPHA reiterates how much value is placed in this partnership that has been developed with CROSQ, and we look forward to future collaborations with CROSQ to prevent diseases and promote optimal health in the Caribbean region. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. St. John. Short and sweet. See the calmness and the collectiveness? Yeah, that's Dr. St. John for you. She would have mentioned the fact that CROSQ collaborated with them. We are at the point of signing the LOA, but CROSQ is so efficient. We finished the standards already? That's efficiency. That's efficiency. I'm just joking though. We started 2 years. We started just before, we started in BC, 2019 BC. And we worked through COVID, and it was not easy because the tourism sector was the hardest hit, and to get those persons to respond was not an easy task. Thank you again, Dr. St. John. Now it takes me to my third speaker, Mr. Derek Omar, who is the Chief Executive Officer for the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, or CROSQ, which is headquartered in Barbados. Mr. Omar is unavoidably not present physically with us. He is on some personal assignment, but he is so committed to the cause that he have given up of his time, right, to be with us virtually this morning. CROSQ is the regional quality infrastructure development institution funded by the 15 member states of the Caribbean community. Mr. Omar's focus on modernizing and accelerating the preparation, adoption, and application of regional standards, metrology, accreditation, and conformity assessment systems to increase trade, boost industrial efficiency and effectiveness, advance a quality-conscious culture among citizens, and further the cause of the CARICOM single market and economy. He is the past CEO of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards and a past director of COPANT, which is the Pan-American Standards Commission, as well as a director of ASTM International, which is the American Society for Testing and Materials. He has been the CEO of CROSQ for the past 7 years. I now invite you, Mr. Omar, to deliver your remarks on behalf of CROSQ. Mr. Omar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sempri. Executive Director of CARPHA, Dr. St. John, Director of Surveillance, Disease Prevention and Control, Dr. Lisa Indar, Technical Officer Accreditation and Conformity Assessment, Mr. Stephen Farquharson, members of the Board of Directors of both CARPHA and CROSQ, as well as invited guests, members of the media, and other special persons. Good day to you all. I think what we really appreciate and what you see here is a sincere and fun relationship that exists between CARPHA and CROSQ as to how we have conducted our collaborative efforts over the past couple of years to do almost the impossible, not only in the development of these 7 standards, but also in revising the labeling of prepackaged goods standards to include some new technology that is sweeping over the world and that is currently in deliberations by a number of other CARICOM institutions as to how to move forward on the agenda. So we really do enjoy our relationship with CARPHA, as you see there. And on a more formal level, I now bring you greetings and remarks on behalf of the CARICOM Regional Organizations for Standards and Quality, better known as CROSQ. I would have loved to be on site today in Barbados with Dr. St. John and the team. However, mission travel commitments did not enable this to be a reality. Nevertheless, CROSQ comes to you today buoyed by this further collaboration with CARPHA. As the network of the 15 bureaus of standards within the Caribbean community, CROSQ has enjoyed a long and mutually beneficial and fun relationship with CARPHA, as you see. Through this collaboration, we have recently been able to create a suite of standards for safety and sustainable development of the hospitality industry, as we would have mentioned before. And this now puts us into better stead to conform with international best practices in the way we approach tourism surveillance in our region. The standards recently completed and approved by the regional ministers of trade and economic development, you would have just heard, are the food and safety sanitation for tourism industry standards, energy management and efficiency for the tourism industry, water treatment management and efficiency for the tourism industry, sewage treatment and management for the tourism industry, solid waste management for the tourism industry, integrated pest management for the tourism industry, and environmental management systems for the tourism industry. is that if there's one thing these 7 standards are sure to do, is to give us the means in the region to help fight back against the adverse effects of the COVID pandemic on the tourism sector, and so regain our market share with sustainability as a primary factor. And this can also put us on an even footing with other international destinations that even now are looking for similar advantages as well. The COVID-19 pandemic has certainly brought enough issues related to health, safety, and sanitation to the fore, that this set of standards should be welcomed by all our CARICOM countries and will be critical for those whose tourism industry is in the main, and one of the chief foreign exchange providers. I must say that these standards and the THP program were well on CARPHA's agenda at least 2 years before the pandemic hit. So the foresight and insight that CARPHA had to develop this THP program is extremely commendable. And I remember when Dr. Indar herself came to present to all the CMOs in the region about the need for this THP program and to get on board and what can happen and what can't happen with pandemics. It was almost like a premonition of what would come 2 years later. So she was a real missionary for the cause and was preaching when probably a lot of people weren't listening enough. So 2020 CARPHA would have been ahead of the game when the disease struck, and therefore there was a lot of continuity of motion. So it's no wonder that Dr. St. John had, what, 3,000 calls to make over the last, supported by Dr. Indar. So CARPHA was on the ball 2 years before, at least, this pandemic hit. So it would be remiss of me to not have mentioned that and to go further without underscoring the importance of our regional standards development process to ensuring there is strength and legitimacy behind the standards and quality assurance measures we create. Each regional standard created goes through a rigorous process of discussion at the national levels by the network of the bureaus of standard in each member state. It is the consensus at this discussion level that then enables us at the regional level to take our standards for approval to the Council for Trade and Economic Development, and then to be approved at the CARICOM level and thereafter for adoption at the national level. This is why we can deem our standards regional in scope, because of the process and engagement that it goes through in the creation of each instrument in an open and transparent manner in each member state. With the finalization of these particular health, safety, and environmental tourism standards under creation, CROSQ, however, does not intend to let them sit by. We see the potential for this region to be able to use the critical parameters of these quality initiatives in new and exciting ways that our agreement with CARPHA spotlights and aids. As part of our European Union CARIFORUM 11th EDF Economic Partnership Agreement and funding, we are already planning to explore the feasibility of utilizing these standards at the member states level and in a harmonized way, so that there is a stepwise approach to the objective attestation of quality in the next couple of years. As we finalize this agreement today, we thank CARPHA and our partners for the foresight and the insight into preparing the region for such a venture, and for the trust placed in CROSQ to assist in this process of quality culture development in the tourism sector. We especially look forward to working with the Caribbean Tourism Organization and the Caribbean Hospitality Associations to be able to count on their collaborations that would make our work and CARPHA's work much more value added in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time and attention this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you very much. Woo. I had to shout, wow, because I guess let you all in a little secret. When I was asked to chair that meeting, the signing ceremony, and I was given a time frame. And then I noticed the agenda had 2 trainees on it. So I was saying, how can I do that? Because the trainees like to talk a lot. So thank you, Mr. Owner. Thank you very much. I had to talk very hard to him this morning, right? And to Dr. Inda as well. Thank you, Dr. Inda. Thank you. At this point in time, we'll move on to the signing of the LOA by Dr. St. John. Let me indicate that Mr. Omar have already appended his signature, and now it's left for Dr. St. John to do the same. Okay, we have 2 copies. This is their sanitized pen.
Thank you. Okay. Today is the 3rd of March.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Ina. We'll take a photo now. This copy is yours.
Oh, thank you.
You want us to stand? Stand. Stand. Stephen, come and join us.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Thanks.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. The next item on the agenda is question and answers. I would like to advise anyone wanting to ask a question to use the raise hand feature on the platform, and you will be acknowledged by someone from CARPHA, right? And in asking your question, you will give your name and the organization that you represent. Okay, let us try to be focused in our questions and to keep it around the activity that we have today. I know you all can be very creative and be exploratory, so you might want to talk about BC and AC before COVID and after COVID. Yeah, let us keep it on the THP project as much as possible.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jay Joseph from the Tourism and Health Program based in Trinidad. I will moderate the question and answer session this morning.
No problem, Jay.
I see that we have Mr. Marlon Madden. His hand is raised. So, Mr. Madden, you may ask your question or give your contribution.
Thanks very much. Good morning, everybody. Marlon Madden, Barbados Today. I have a couple questions. I want to find out, first of all, we talk about the threats that we face and these standards are developed to protect us against all the threats. Could we identify some of those threats? And when can we look forward to see these standards being issued?
Dr. Inda? My answer.
Does this need to go?
Okay.
Go
It's
ahead.
okay?
Yes, okay.
Okay, great. So health, safety, and environmental threats. Well, let's start with health threats. The COVID is a health-19 pandemic is a health threat. And before COVID, and as Mr. Omar said, we would have started this before, we would have seen many infectious diseases such as norovirus and influenza and salmonella and other outbreaks. In fact, that was really devastating tourism. In fact, the impetus of building this tourism program started when there was a large outbreak of norovirus, which started in a hotel, and quickly expanded within 5 days from 50 cases to almost 800 cases in a short space of time. And it really was propelled by the fact, it was people in close quarters that were tourists in close quarters and that were mixing and mingling. So it really showed, how quickly disease can spread. What was the result? There was a 30% decline in tourism in that particular country. And the premier of that country actually got up in a meeting and said to us that, I've spent millions of dollars on promoting tourism, but one health event actually devastated my tourism product. So that's just some of the example of our health threats. The sanitation threats. We know water quality, air quality, sewage quality. Those are huge threats for the region. We are not up to standard. We need to move up the standards. And in terms of safety, what about the safety and the well-being of the population that then results from health threats and environmental threats? So, the list could go on and we can provide you, but if we really want to impact on health, we have to recognize we are the most tourism dependent region. And previous to the THP, I must say, there was no specific health program that was addressing these health, safety, and environmental threats. So we keep saying we're tourism dependent. And we know that travel, which is the most important economic earner to us, we know that's important. But the first case of Zika, of chikungunya, and even COVID came in through the travelers. So we had to put in place systems of surveillance, standards of operation, policies, and training and capacity building, so we can equip our very important tourism sector to build capacity to withstand these health, safety, and environmental threats. With respect to the availability of these standards, so as we said that they are approved by CROSQ, and so the next phase is where we print and we disseminate. We will have a important launch coming up in the next couple of months for these before the standards are distributed.
Great, thank you, Dr. Indar. Guests, let me remind you, you're invited to use the Zoom raise hand feature or you may use the chat box to type your question. Right, so Mr. Madden, may I ask you to put down your hand?
I have one more question, if you may permit me.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah.
Thanks much. My other question, as it relates to the recommendations in this standard, based on what Mr. Omar said earlier, will it be that we're going to enforce it, and if so, will it come with penalties, or is it a voluntary framework?
Okay, I could take this question. Fulgen Sempri, Technical Officers Standards, CROSQ. Standards are voluntary instruments. However, the requirements of those standards can be made mandatory through a technical regulation. We do have some member states that their Standards Act speaks to compulsory standards, and so they can make the standards compulsory. So the intention really is, since we're talking about affecting health and safety, there is a legitimate objective to make the requirements of those standards mandatory, so they could be implemented, right? Now, implementation really doesn't mean that automatically it would be a technical regulation. They would use good regulatory practices to determine what form of implementation that it would take. I know that CARPHA is, as part of the tourism and health program, are looking at an awards scheme. And so they might just make certification to those standards a requirement for the tourism industry, so that they, as part of attaining that award, right, that you might have to get certified to those standards. I know that they're thinking of it, right? And so that might be another mechanism which would be used to encourage implementation of those standards.
Yes, so just to add, we will start, it will be a multi-pronged approach, as Mr. Fulton said. It starts voluntary. There will be some aspects that we would move, as it impacts on health, moving and working with CROSQ for mandatory regional implementation. But coming up very soon is CARPHA has developed a Healthier, Safer Tourism Award, which really awards tourism facilities for their proactive measures in health and surveillance and safety. So this award has already been given to 100 tourism facilities, and it's a tier system. And the next tier will be through the implementation of the standards, and you would go up a notch to a silver award for implementation of the standards. The regional award is recognized by CTO, CHK, and also internationally by the World Travel and Tourism Council. So it really, gives the tourism facilities an impetus to implement the standards.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Indar, and thank you, Mrs. Sanpri. Any further questions from any of our guests? Okay, Chair, I don't see any hands raised, nor do I see any questions asked in the chat. Sorry?
Sorry, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hester Daniel from CARPHA, THP, epidemiologist at the unit. I just have one question in terms of, I noted Mr. Umar spoke about some technology, new technologies within the realm of the standards. I was just wondering if it could be elaborated on in terms of how this could assist in the implementation, if possible.
Mr. Umar, you would want to take that?
Yeah, when I was talking about some new technological or technical ideas that were circulating in the world and based upon recent trends, it was really to speak to the revision of the standards of prepackaged goods and how that labeling standard could be boosted to help with the whole issue of non-communicable diseases. It wasn't in relation to the THP standards in particular, but in the development of the THP standards over the last 2 years, new international ideas would have been naturally taken up in the standards that were eventually approved. So that's good. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Umar. Any further questions or comments before we wrap up today? Right, Chair, over to you.
Thank you very much. And thanks to the media for keeping it focused. Yeah, I appreciate that. Really. So we come to this the part of the agenda where we need to close and say thank you to those who have attended. And to do that, I would call on my colleague, Mr. Stephen Farquharson, who is the Technical Officer for Accreditation and Conformity Assessment. For short, we call him the TOACA. Go ahead, Mr. Farquharson.
Thank you, Chair. Acknowledging the protocols already observed in the interest of time, I would just want to start by saying that today's ceremony certainly represents a milestone in the continued relationship between CROSQ and the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA. It certainly represents a landmark in the continuing development of standards and quality infrastructure in the CARICOM region. The Executive Director of CARPHA, Dr. St. John, in her remarks, is founded on the value in this relationship that has already created and the potential contribution that today's signing of this letter of agreement can make to the expansion of the health, safety, and environmental impacts. Of course, in underscoring that impact that the safety and environmental health standards are having on the tourism industry, Dr. St. John noted that enhancing training in these areas can contribute significantly to the joint response, as we underscore, and we at CROSQ certainly underscore this view. So thank you, Dr. St. John, for your remarks. Appreciation must also be given to Dr. Lisa Indar, the other member of her team, and the extended staff of CARPHA, who have worked tirelessly alongside Mr. Omar and Mr. St. Prix to ensure that the standards being created for our region speaks to the realities of the issues that need to be addressed. I want to thank also Mr. Omar for your remarks and for explaining the context within which CROSQ approaches this relationship and the expectations for success. We are deeply aware of the value this agreement brings to CROSQ. The impact of this partnership will reverberate around our region to the benefits of many for years to come. A big thank you to the CROSQ network of National Standards Bureaus who are joining us online, as well as those who have been an integral part of this process to ensure that the standards will accurately address our issues while acknowledging and incorporating international best practices. Sincere appreciation must be given to the planning team of today's activity, comprising CROSQ and CARPHA members, for bringing all the components, both the face-to-face and virtual, together to ensure that this event was streamed and accessible to a wide audience. To our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Fulgence St. Prix, thank you, sir. This project we know holds a special place in your heart, and it's because of the hard work you and your technical team, both at the national and regional level, have made and are putting in, that our expectations are so high. Thank you for your leadership on the development process, as well as your role of chairing the session today. All CROSQ directors, including Mr. Hayden Ryan of the Barbados National Standards Institution, the partner agencies who have and are in a way supporting the many aspects of this work, we say thank you. This would not be possible without your belief in the regional integration and the development of the regional quality infrastructure. And finally, to our guests and the members of the media who agreed to join us for this brief signing ceremony and media engagement, your continued partnership is also appreciated. And we thank you for sharing the information with the public at large. And we ask that you please feel free to contact us at CROSQ if you have any further questions. And I just want to add that the support of CARPHA and the IADB in sponsoring the project to this point, we also want to give kudos and thank you for their sponsorship. And to the EU, who will be sponsoring the future events as we prepare to bring in the conformity assessment portfolio that will support this program, bring it to the next level. We also want to give a big thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you, Stephen, for the kind words, and thanking all those who would have participated. But I need to really single out Mr. Ryan and Mr. Nanwandi, our two cheerleaders, in this room. Thank you for your support. You know, you all didn't hear the noise, the kind of noise they were making. They were the only ones making noise. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And again, to CARPHA and the team for putting together. We started the development of that LOA sometime in October, and we were basically completed by January, February, ready for signature. And this is no mean feat. I think we need to pat ourselves on the back for that. So thank you, everybody. And I say goodbye. Normally we would say travel safely. Unless you're traveling from one room to the other, Enjoy your lunch.
But she has to travel.
Oh, yes. Dr.
She had to travel and she had to fly in.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Very nice.